Multiply to find the percents below. So the main verb here is the word multiply. However, it says of, so we don't see the multiplication, but that's what it means. So you want to connect that. So when you see the word a number of another number, the operation is multiplication. So what I want to do is I'm going to do example A, and I want to do a little visual to see what is my answer gonna look like. So let's write it down. So 8% of 150. So our job is to multiply, so we can record it as 8% times 150. Now when we have percents, what is the meaning of it? Remember, it's out of 100. So visually, so I'm gonna draw and see what would my answer look like. So I'm going to divide it in 10%. So this is a representation of 100% in 10 equal parts. So 0% in the beginning, and that will be at 10%. Now the total is 150. So how much is 10%, right? So 10% is 1/10 of 150. So 1/10 is actual 15. So when they say 8%, it needs to be a little less than 15. So now I know my answer has to be less than 15. Now when I have percent, means out of 100. So one way I could do it, so there's two different ways. The 8% means 8 out of 100 times 150. So that's one way. Now the 150, we can write it over 1. So we would represent it as fraction, and then we multiply by another fraction. Or we can change the 8% as a decimal. So 8% is 8 out of 100, or 8 hundredths. So think of it at 8 cents. So that's what the decimal equivalent of 8% is. Those are equivalent, different views, times 150. So we have two choices. We have to make a choice. Do I want to use the fraction, or do I want to use the decimal? In anyhow, we would be multiplying the digits. The digit that I see to multiply is 150 times 8. So when I multiply just the digits, I want to line up by the digit. So like if I'm writing it, like, let me actually rewrite. I wanted to rewrite it to show you that each of those numbers have its own lined up, but I'm using 8, not 8%. So when I'm multiplying, I'm just multiplying that by 8. And then the decimal would come next. So go ahead and pause the video. Go ahead and multiply. And remember, it's out of 100. So whatever number over here out of 100, so you have to convert it back to a decimal or divide by 100. If you did the decimal, whatever those digits are, you have to go 2 decimal places. You gotta count those, right? And those two answers must be the same after you divide by 100. So check your work. So I multiplied and showed work, so I got 1200, but those are the numbers. So 1200. So if I was using fractions, now 1200 divided by 100, that's actual 12. Now going back to the picture is 12, so this should be 12 over here. For the 8%, it is less than 15, which was the 10%, so it makes sense. Now if I wrote it with the decimal, I would write 1200, and then I have to say hundreds. So this is the visual representation. I gotta cut this off, and then we get the same answer. So whichever way you do it, as long as you get the same answer, then you should be fine. Okay, let's start letter B together, and it says 8.5 or 5/10, 8 and 5/10 of, and sorry, that's percent, so that means something, right? Of 70. So when I talk about 8.5% of a number, we said the of means we're gonna multiply, or little dot or little x, and then of 70, so we multiply. Now I still kept the 10% number line over there. 8.5%, it's way less, so it's somewhere, and then we have the total is 70. So 10% should be 7. 1/10 of 70 is 7. So our answer must be less than 7, because we'll be a little bit before. Okay, so when you are looking at your answer, you have to get less than 7. Now remember how I said 2 different ways. So 8.5% means divided by 100 times 70 and then over 1. That's one way. Or change the 8.5% as a decimal. So 8.5% is, so the decimal, think of 8%, it's like 8 cents. Okay, so this is what 8 cents look like, or 8%, and then I have to record that 5. Or basically these two are equivalent, and then we have to still multiply by 70. I already show you how to multiply, but again, different numbers, so whichever way you do it, make sure you consider the decimal place value at the end. Personally, I would do it that way just because I see the numbers. Just the numbers that I would multiply is 85 times 7 or times 70, and then acknowledge the decimal place value, and then use the information we know that the answer has to be less than 7 to figure out where the decimal will be. So finish this problem on your own.